When it comes to audio mastering, the limiter you are using is one of the most crucial tools. This is why a couple of months ago I started to search and test different limiters that the audio market has to offer. And I have to say that some of them are pretty good. Hey, I'm Adrian from adrianmilia.com, and today I'm going to test the Ozone 9 maximizer from Ozone 9 Advanced. I will also test the maximizer with my favorite limiter, the Brickwall limiter, the PowerCore version from TC Electronic. And while at it, I will compare the maximizer with the Pro L2 from FabFilter in order to have some different perspectives. But before we do that, if you want to improve your mixes and masters in less than 10 minutes, go ahead and download your cheat sheet here. And while you do that, I'll play some staggering intro. Back in 2008-2009, I remember I used Ozone in my mastering sessions, but I cannot remember which version was that. Today, however, I'm going to test the Ozone 9 maximizer. So I downloaded a trial of the maximizer, and it seems you can use the trial for 10 days in case you want to test the maximizer for yourself. And this is how the maximizer looks like, a pretty clean interface. On the left, there are different IRC modes that you can choose from. IRC stands for Intelligent Release Control, and if you hover over the modes, there's more information. For example, you can use the IRC LL mode for smooth and thick limiting for a rich sound with low latency. Same in the case of the IRC1, but I guess in this case you have some more latency to deal with. If you want clear and sharp limiting to preserve peaks, you might want to use the IRC2 mode. Want some surgical limiting? Try the IRC3 mode, which also has some profiles you can choose from: pumping, balanced, crisp, and clipping. I'll be honest, from my tests I like most the IRC4 mode, which according to iZotope you can use for spectral shaping for reduced pumping and distortion. And if you click on it, you can choose between 3 profiles: classic, modern, and transient. A nice feature which I also discovered recently when testing the Brickwall limiter HD Native from TC Electronic, a pretty interesting episode that you might want to watch after this video. In this case, it is called the Learn Threshold. So basically, when you use this option or tool, you tell the maximizer what is your target loudness for your master. If you click on the Learn Threshold, the threshold parameter of the maximizer becomes unavailable for you to use. And that is because when you activate the Learn Threshold and set your target loudness and then play your master, the Ozone 9 maximizer will adjust automatically the threshold so that your audio material can reach your target loudness. Don't worry, I'm going to show you how to use this feature later in this video, so stay tuned. Okay, now let's move on. So when the Learn Threshold option is activated, you cannot control the threshold, but you can set the ceiling. Here we have the ceiling option, with which you can control the output of the limiter. Oops, in this case it is called a maximizer. Anyway, in my mastering sessions, I always set the ceiling option to -1 dB in order to control those nasty true peaks. In case you want to control the threshold of the maximizer, you will need to deactivate the Learn Threshold option. And there you go, the threshold is active again. By default, the maximizer limits the peaks of your audio material, but in case you want to take care of true peaks, you should activate this option here called True Peak. Now, we talked about the maximizer's intelligent release control modes. However, with this option here, you can control to some extent or customize the attack and release times of the maximizer. Then here, you can choose how the maximizer should limit the channels. In other words, with this transient option here, you can choose whether the maximizer should process the right and left channels together or in linked mode, or you can opt for the unlinked mode, where the 2 channels would be processed independently. In my case, I never unlink the channels when limiting, same with the sustain option. Then here, you can link or unlink the transient and sustain parameters. In case you need some further transient emphasis, you can use this parameter here. When you play your audio material, there are some readings here on the right, like the peaks and the RMS of the input and output of the maximizer. Here, you can unlink the left and right channels in case you need to make some input adjustments. Same goes for the output. In case you need to bypass the plugin, you can also do it here. Then this option here automatically match effective gain when bypassed, which is a pretty cool option to have. In case you need dithering, you can find the parameter here, and you can bypass or activate it here. In case you want to customize the dither further, click on dither, and here's the dither module, where you can customize the bit depth, the dither amount, noise shaping, and there's also a bit meter and a DC offset meter. If we go back, when you click here, there are more settings you can customize, like the Windows opacity or whether you want the maximizer to show some info on true peaks. And here you can access the history of the changes you have made. Then here, you can choose between the mini spectrum or gain reduction view. Plus, you can customize the size of the maximizer. Then here, you can choose between different presets. And that's pretty much it in terms of the maximizer parameters and options. And now let's listen how the Ozone 9 maximizer actually sounds. As mentioned, from my quick tests I liked the IRC4 mode the most, but now I'll actually compare the Ozone 9 maximizer with my favorite limiter from TC Electronic, the Brickwall limiter, the PowerCore version. For this test, I'll use a song produced and mixed by my brother Vlad. Also, I matched the limiters in terms of loudness. Plus, I activated the True Peak mode and set a ceiling of -1 dBFS. So, let's try the transient profile first. From the very beginning, I'm pleased that the maximizer keeps the 3D space almost untouched and also the stereo image of the mix. Let's try another section. From this part, I feel that the top end of the maximizer is a bit too harsh compared with the Brickwall limiter. So I'm going to try the modern profile instead and see if anything changes. It seems to me that the modern profile sounds a bit more like the Brickwall, so it is less harsh than the transient mode. And to confirm this, let's try another section of the song. First, I must say I like that the maximizer does not distort or pump in this pretty loud section, but I still feel there's some harshness at the top end in the case of the maximizer, while the Brickwall limiter sounds more natural to me. But let's bring the Pro L2 from FabFilter into play and see how the maximizer compares in this case. Again, it seems to me that the PowerWHELM 2 in this case sounds more natural and not as harsh as the maximizer. Also, in this part, PowerWHELM 2 as the Brickwall limiter keeps the separation of the elements of the mix in more control than the maximizer. Now I want to test again really quick the transient profile against PowerWHELM 2. So in this case, the maximizer with the transient profile brings more presence to the master, which was not intended at the mastering stage, while the PowerWHELM 2 keeps the master natural, clean and transparent. So in this case, I like PowerWHELM 2 and the Brickwall limiter better. Now let's see another section. I have to say that the maximizer sounds pretty good, but it seems to me that the Brickwall limiter keeps the master more transparent and natural sounding. Now, from my previous test of different limiters, I found out that sometimes limiters affect softer parts of mixes in unwanted ways, meaning there are limiters that are making softer parts of masters louder than they should. Therefore, I'm going to test how the Ozone 9 maximizer behaves in this case. So in the case of the Brickwall limiter, in this section we have about -13.6 LUFS. Now let's see how the maximizer behaves in this section. So we have about -13.6 LUFS, which is pretty good, and that tells me that the maximizer behaves as a very good limiter. There's one more thing I want to test, and that is how the maximizer handles the true peaks. On the Brickwall limiter, I set a threshold of -1 dB. By the way, in this case, the threshold is the ceiling option on the maximizer. So be aware of that because different plugins have different names for the same parameters, and sometimes this could be confusing. So when I play the Brickwall limiter version, you can see that the true peaks are not going over -1 dB ceiling. On the maximizer, we have the same -1 dB ceiling, with the true peak option activated. And when we play the master, we have about -0.9 dB true peak, which is not bad. So if you want to take care of true peaks, be sure to activate this option here in order to control the true peaks. Now I said at the beginning of this video that I'm going to show you how to use the Learn Threshold option in order to let the Ozone 9 maximizer to set the threshold automatically for your target loudness. So let's do that. Before activating the Learn Threshold option, I recommend you to select the loudest part of your mix. Then set the threshold at its initial position, that is 0 dBFS. Set your ceiling and then activate true peak if you want. Then click on Learn Threshold and set your target loudness. Let's say in this case I want a loudness of -9 LUFS for the loudest part of this master. When you're happy with your settings, hit play. And we have about -9 LUFS. After you hit your target loudness, it is important to deactivate the Learn Threshold option. If you won't do this, watch what happens. The maximizer continues to target your desired loudness, also at the softer parts of your mix. And when we hit louder parts, things start to distort. So be aware of this, and hopefully this little tip will help you. In this video, we talked about one crucial tool for audio mastering, and that is a maximizer or a limiter. In case you want to learn audio mastering step by step so that you can finally make your production sound professional, check out my Pro Audio Mastering program, where I'll show you exactly that. But we cannot end this video without any conclusions, can we? From my tests, Ozone 9 Maximizer is one of the best limiters or maximizers, if you want, that the audio market has to offer. I like that it doesn't distort or pump, even at hot levels. I also like that it keeps the stereo image and depth of mixes almost untouched. And of course, I also like the learn threshold feature. But from my tests, when compared with the Brickwall limiter from TC Electronic and Pro L2 from FabFilter, Ozone 9 Maximizer adds some unwanted harshness at the top end, which also affects the clarity of the master. However, things improve when you select the modern profile on the IRC4 mode. Also, I believe some of that harshness can be tamed with some multi-band compression or EQ, but this of course depends on the audio material you're working on. Now, just to be clear, I'm not saying that Ozone 9 Maximizer makes all masters or mixes harsh. This happened only in the case of my tests. That being said, I think Ozone 9 Maximizer is a pretty good limiter. However, again, from my tests, I like the Brickwall limiter and Pro L2 better. And you, what do you think about Ozone 9 Maximizer? Do you like it? Put your answers in the comments below and let's chat. Subscribe and check out some other limiter testing videos I made for you. Until next time, stay cool and make great music.